Hi everyone, welcome to the NC channel. Today I'm going to be sharing my experience in 3 cities in Croatia with a major focus on Dubrovnik, the place that the Game of Thrones fans love to visit. During one of our group chats, we decided it was high time we met and hung out together for a few days since it had been a few years we all hung out together. After a few discussions and polling, we decided we would visit Croatia. We would start with 2 tantalizing cities and end the trip in a climax in one where the Game of Thrones fans will be thrilled beyond words. We had discussions about the budgets and lots of reminders that we were all coming in with different currencies which all had different powers. One of my friends and I set to work on creating a plan and a schedule that fits the interests and wishes of 7 independent individuals. Whew, I don't know how we pulled that off. I arrived in Split excited and headed off to the apartment that had been rented. As we had all, well, except 2 people, flown in from different locations, the arrival dates and times were different. After spending a nice time sightseeing and chilling in Split, we headed off to Hvar. About an hour later, the catamaran reached the port of Hvar. The views all the way were breathtaking. The water looked so inviting and amazing. In Hvar, we visited the Falco Beach, Dubrovnika, St. Stephen's Cathedral and Square, the Venetian Loggia and Clock Tower, and the Spanish Fortress. We also took a trip to the Pakleni Islands and many other places. We boarded the catamaran from Hvar to Dubrovnik, the place where the Game of Thrones fans were eager to visit. Arriving in Dubrovnik, we headed to the address of the apartment that had been rented on Airbnb. However, it seemed to be a weird place and we were totally confused. The friend who was in charge of booking us the place where we were to stay in Dubrovnik was hyper confused. She called the owner of the place, who appeared to be super pissed that we had told her we would be at her place at a certain time, but we weren't. After a lot of back and forths between them, we found out that the lady had put a fake address on the Airbnb site, and the correct address was sent as a message on the site to my friend shortly before we arrived in Dubrovnik. We all got super pissed with the situation, and the friend kept apologizing over and over again. Truth be told, it wasn't really her fault. We were all hungry and tired, and I guess needed to vent. The actual apartment was very nice, even though the lady, unfortunately, wasn't. She also gave a lame excuse for putting up a fake address and didn't even care that we had ended up walking up a steep hill across town to a fake place. Instead, she was annoyed that we had kept her waiting. She also kept acting like she was dealing with a bunch of retards, some more than others. Luckily, I was spared from the group of extreme retards. I really don't know what their offense was, to be honest. Now, while preparing for the trip to Dubrovnik, I had tried to get into Game of Thrones, but I just couldn't. It was so overhyped at the time, and I expected way more. The first episode I ever saw seemed to be like soft porn, with a lot of incest going on. I, however, got to see the Walk of Shame and got sent notable clips to watch. Back to being in Dubrovnik, we quickly learned that the city had become overrun with the Game of Thrones fans, and the names of the places in the city had been renamed by tourists to what they were called in the series, and the locals hated it, which was understandable. I also quickly learned to clarify the fact that I wasn't American. Being American seemed to get you instantly disliked by the locals. I wonder why. While in Dubrovnik, we visited the Menchira Tower, which is Dubrovnik's protecting towers as well as the highest point of its defense system. It allows for a good and beautiful view of the city. We also saw the Pearl Gate, the walls of Dubrovnik, the Onofrio Fountain, the Jesuit Stairs, the Dominican Monastery, Sponza Palace, St. Lawrence Fortress, and went into the Boca Fortress and some other locations popularly known by the Game of Thrones fans. We also visited the Lokrum Island and splashed around in the Dead Sea. Oh well, I splashed around. I also had my first squid risotto in Dubrovnik and ate quite a lot of seafood. Some restaurants had very friendly waiters and waitresses, while others were just so goddamn rude. Once, a waiter didn't take my order and ignored me. He said I didn't speak up when we were ordering drinks, and so he just didn't bother with my food order. We also saw a mother and daughter get turned away from eating because they were being annoying. Also, lots of tourists got turned away if they came dressed to the restaurants like they were going to the beach or on their way back from there. Choosing a friendly place to eat was quite a challenge at times. We would have to spend a few minutes watching how they interacted with the customers and the number of people seated in the restaurant to be able to come to a conclusion as to whether we wanted to eat there or not. It turned out that we weren't the only tourists doing this. As our rented apartment was high up, waking up to gorgeous views was amazing. It was quite an exercise to go anywhere as it required walking up and down a flight of steps or hill. However, the blue Adriatic Sea and the scenic views was always a sight to behold and made up for the unpleasantness that was going on and all the cardio needed. We had spoken to some friendly locals who explained the hostile attitude of some other frequently met locals. These locals feel that Dubrovnik is an amazing city and a sight to behold that never asks to be a filming location for the Game of Thrones. Also, they found it infuriating when they were stopped to ask for directions to King's Landing, which is a fictional place in Game of Thrones, and when the tourists clearly had no idea what the actual names of the places were. Another thing was that due to the influx of Game of Thrones fans, prices of rent had gone up exponentially, with some house owners renting only to tourists and visitors to the city, as they made more money that way. Also, they found it unbearable to watch tourists walking around their city in beachwear. Lastly, they complained about the overcrowding during the warmer months. I, however, never understood nor got an explanation for the nasty attitude of some waiters and waitresses in the restaurants to fully clad tourists. Croatia still happens to be one of the beautiful countries I have visited, and I highly recommend it. If you do decide to visit Dubrovnik, be careful not to fall into any of the tourist traps and avoid demonstrating any of the stereotypes to reduce the amount of unfriendliness you'll get. If you have been to Split, Hvar, or Dubrovnik and you would like to share your experience and/or tips, please do so in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching and see you next time. Bye.